In the bustling, sun-drenched streets of a sprawling metropolis, a young homeless black boy named Jamal wandered with cautious steps and a resolute spirit that defied his harsh circumstances. Every day, amid the ceaseless hum of urban life and glaring contrast between wealth and despair, he navigated crowded sidewalks with hope intermingled with hardened determination. Clad in worn garments and tattered sneakers that silently spoke of abandonment and struggle, his appearance told a story of enduring hardship and unyielding pride. One fateful afternoon, while scavenging for discarded food near a prestigious restaurant adorned with glittering lights, Jamal's keen ears caught an alarming sound that would alter his destiny. Amid the clatter of cutlery and murmurs of indulgent diners, a renowned billionaire known for his extravagant lifestyle sat indulging in a sumptuous feast that epitomized opulent excess. The opulent dish before the billionaire, a lavish array of rare ingredients and decadent flavors, stood as a stark symbol of societal disparity and an entrenched culture of indulgence. A sudden, overpowering aroma of rich spices and freshly cooked delicacies mingled with urban scents, triggering a deep, instinctive reaction in a young boy. Without hesitation, his voice rang out across the plaza as he forcefully shouted, "Don't eat that," his tone filled with urgency and an uncompromising demand for justice. The resonant cry, echoing off nearby buildings and capturing the attention of startled passersby, sent ripples of shock and disbelief through the gathered crowd. Momentarily stunned, the billionaire froze mid-bite, his eyes widening as they met Jamal's fervent gaze, which burned with raw truth and defiant courage. In that suspended moment, the stark chasm between opulent luxury and desperate poverty crystallized before everyone, exposing the harsh realities of their divided worlds. The surrounding diners, initially engrossed in lavish meals, fell into a stunned silence as they grappled with the unexpected collision of two contrasting lives. Jamal's impassioned declaration transcended the immediate circumstance, emerging as a poignant denunciation of systemic neglect and the rampant exploitation of the vulnerable. The billionaire, whose life had been characterized by unyielding self-assurance and unexamined privilege, now found himself confronting a mirror reflecting a painful societal truth. Haunted by memories of personal loss and the isolating burdens of wealth, he sensed an unfamiliar weight pressing upon his long-ignored conscience. The boy's commanding words reverberated like a clarion call through the corridors of excess, urging those with power to acknowledge the suffering of the neglected. As murmurs of astonishment and empathetic concern spread among onlookers, the tension in the air thickened with the promise of an impending, transformative change. Each syllable of Jamal's protest carried the collective anguish of the forgotten, resonating deeply with those who had long endured silent oppression. In the interplay of startled silence and mounting emotion, the billionaire's once impenetrable facade began to crack, revealing a vulnerability he had never known. Jamal stood small yet unyielding, his voice a beacon amid chaos, compelling every onlooker to reconsider the entrenched societal structures that divided them. The fervor in his eyes spoke of dreams, sorrows, and unspoken histories of countless souls relegated to the margins by a system steeped in inequality. With each resounding exclamation, he dismantled the veneer of luxury that masked the painful realities suffered by those deemed unworthy of indulgence. The lavish surroundings and glittering decor could no longer conceal the stark inequities that Jamal's impassioned cry had so vividly exposed to all. In that charged moment, the billionaire grappled with an internal conflict between preserving his extravagant lifestyle and embracing a newfound sense of empathy. The urgent command, "Don't eat that," evolved into a symbolic indictment of a system that celebrated excess while neglecting the basic rights of the impoverished. As onlookers exchanged glances of shock, hope, and indignation, the space around them transformed into a stage for an unexpected and profound social reckoning. The billionaire's trembling hand, still clutching a fork laden with sumptuous fare, signified a rare moment of introspection and the dawning of personal accountability. Jamal's protest, though seemingly simple, resonated as a powerful challenge to an established order that had long ignored the suffering of the marginalized. The restaurant, once a haven of opulence and unbridled enjoyment, now bore silent witness to a confrontation that pierced the veneer of unassailable wealth. As the echo of the boy's voice faded into a heavy silence, a palpable shift signaled the beginning of a conversation about equity, dignity, and shared responsibility. The billionaire, his expression softening with regret and revelation, slowly recognized the deep moral fissures that had long separated his world from that of the destitute. Every eye in the room, from the most affluent patron to the overlooked staff, was drawn into the gravity of the moment and the urgent call for societal change. Though burdened by his own hardships, Jamal embodied a resilient spirit that dared to speak truth to power despite overwhelming odds and systemic injustice. In that fleeting yet monumental encounter, the boundaries between wealth and poverty blurred, giving way to a shared understanding of humanity's intrinsic need for justice. The billionaire's stunned silence testified to the profound impact of a single voice that rose above privilege and indifference to demand accountability. In the echo of Jamal's fervent cry, the assembled crowd found itself united by an unspoken commitment to challenge the status quo and strive for reform. The vibrant tapestry of the city, woven from the disparate threads of countless lives, shimmered with the promise of transformation and communal redemption. Jamal's impassioned shout ignited a spark that transcended individual grievances, calling forth a collective awakening among those long resigned to injustice. The heavy atmosphere, laden with emotion and the promise of change, served as a poignant reminder that even the smallest voice could disrupt entrenched power. As the encounter drew to a close, the lingering silence bore witness to an unspoken vow that the injustices exposed that day would spark a lasting movement for change. In the quiet, reflective hours of the early morning after the shocking confrontation, the entire city seemed to hold its breath in a state of uneasy anticipation, each moment laden with the weight of unresolved social tensions and the promise of imminent change. The billionaire, whose face had frozen in a mixture of astonishment and dawning regret during the incident, spent a long and solitary night in his lavish mansion, wrestling with an overwhelming surge of remorse and a profound re-examination of every decision that had led him to this fateful juncture. Meanwhile, across the urban sprawl, the resonant echoes of Jamal's impassioned plea, "Don't eat that," continued to reverberate through crowded streets and quiet alleyways alike, igniting conversations among citizens who had long suffered in silence. As the first light of day began to pierce the horizon with gentle rays, a palpable shift in the atmosphere was felt by all, with whispers of reform and hope mingling with the soft murmur of an awakening city determined to confront its past. The fearless outburst by the homeless boy, whose voice carried both raw defiance and unyielding truth, had ignited a spark among the marginalized and the powerful alike, urging them to challenge entrenched systems of inequality that had persisted for far too long. In the opulent solitude of his study, surrounded by relics of a life built on excess, the billionaire immersed himself in introspection, sifting through memories of indulgent luxury and painful recollections of moments when compassion was sacrificed on the altar of wealth. Every sumptuous meal and extravagant indulgence that had once symbolized his success now appeared hollow and tainted by the stark realization that his fortune was intertwined with the suffering and neglect of those he had long overlooked. Across the city, news outlets and social media platforms buzzed with fervent debates and impassioned editorials, each broadcast and post adding layers of complexity to the narrative of an incident that had swiftly morphed into a symbol of societal reckoning. Citizens from every corner of the metropolis began to rally around Jamal's defiant act, elevating his passionate cry into a beacon of hope and a rallying call against systemic injustice that resonated deeply in hearts burdened by decades of neglect. The incident sparked intense discussions in public squares, local cafes, and even in the hallowed halls of corporate boardrooms, where conversations about responsibility, equity, and moral duty filled the air with an energy that could not be ignored. While some critics denounced the billionaire's lavish lifestyle as emblematic of a deeply flawed system of unchecked privilege, others argued that confronting the roots of inequality required bold reforms and introspective actions from every echelon of society. In the midst of this tumultuous debate, the billionaire sought guidance from trusted advisors and ethical scholars, determined to understand the origins of the collective unrest that his very existence had inadvertently fueled. The burden of introspection weighed heavily upon him, as he began to recognize that the protective veneer of invincibility he had long maintained was now steadily eroding under the relentless scrutiny of public opinion and his own guilty conscience. His once impregnable world of opulence and isolation was gradually crumbling under the combined pressures of media scrutiny, activist outcry, and the growing clamor for justice that demanded accountability at every level. In an unprecedented act of humility, he arranged discreet meetings with community leaders, grassroots organizers, and social activists, each dialogue serving as a tentative bridge across the vast chasm separating his world from that of the marginalized. These earnest conversations were imbued with candid revelations and heartfelt admissions, as participants shared deeply personal stories of struggle and hope, ultimately forging a fragile yet promising alliance for future reform. Meanwhile, Jamal's journey through the city's labyrinthine streets continued, his resilient spirit undimmed by adversity as he navigated a world rife with obstacles, each step echoing the courage of a voice that refused to be silenced. Despite the many hardships that had marked his tender years, The boy maintained a dignified presence and an unwavering determination, inspiring all who encountered him with the quiet strength of his unyielding conviction. His defiant outcry had evolved beyond a mere moment of protest, transforming into a powerful symbol of resistance that challenged the very foundations of a society steeped in inequity and long-forgotten promises of fairness. In neighborhoods once isolated by despair, grassroots movements began to coalesce with newfound vigor, uniting citizens in a shared pursuit of dignity, justice, and the long-overdue recognition of their intrinsic human rights. Local community centers quickly transformed into vibrant hubs of activism, where workshops, discussions, and creative expressions emerged as vehicles for channeling the collective pain and hope of a people yearning for change. Artists, musicians, and poets found in Jamal's story a profound source of inspiration, crafting evocative works that capture the raw emotion of the confrontation and the transformative power of a single, defiant voice. The billionaire, now reluctantly aware of the broader impact of his actions, grappled with the heavy implications of his past indifference and the urgent need to become a constructive force for societal healing. In private moments of quiet reflection, he penned long introspective notes that documented his internal struggles and tentative aspirations, each carefully chosen word marking a step toward genuine transformation. His philanthropic initiatives, once dismissed as superficial gestures, began to take on new dimensions as he redirected vast resources toward sustainable projects aimed at uplifting communities long left to languish in poverty. This emerging commitment to social reform resonated deeply with many, igniting hope that the pervasive cycle of inequality might finally be disrupted by deliberate, empathetic actions and transparent accountability. As the day unfolded, public forums and town hall meetings were convened with an air of urgency, drawing in citizens eager to participate in open dialogues that questioned long-held assumptions and demanded concrete change. The media, ever hungry for narratives of transformation, chronicled every development with a sense of anticipation, their coverage underscoring the profound impact that one act of defiance could have on an entire community. In schools and universities across the city, educators incorporated discussions of the incident into their curricula, encouraging students to critically analyze the intertwined dynamics of power, wealth, and the enduring quest for justice. The collective memory of that pivotal moment began to weave itself into the cultural fabric of the metropolis, serving as a constant reminder that true progress required persistent effort, compassion, and unwavering resolve. Community leaders lauded the courage of both Jamal and the reformed billionaire, seeing in their actions a reflection of the transformative potential that lay dormant within every individual willing to challenge the status quo. Meanwhile, the boy's steadfast determination continued to resonate with those who had been long silenced by systemic neglect, sparking a series of grassroots initiatives aimed at empowering the disenfranchised. As public support swelled, in the vibrant aftermath of the previous day's transformative events, the city emerged from its nocturnal slumber with a fervent energy that promised renewal. The homeless boy Jamal, whose defiant cry had become a rallying symbol, found himself both celebrated and scrutinized as his name spread like wildfire through urban neighborhoods. Meanwhile, the billionaire's journey towards self-redemption took on a new urgency as he grappled with the daunting realization that his wealth was inextricably linked to systemic injustice. Public opinion swirled around him like a tempest, urging him to convert his lavish resources into tangible actions that could bridge the widening gap between the haves and the have-nots. In private sessions with advisors and social reformers, he vowed to realign his philanthropic efforts to address the deep-rooted disparities that had long plagued the community. Across the city, grassroots organizations seized the moment, mobilizing volunteers and resources to support shelters, community kitchens, and educational programs. Jamal, though still a figure of youth and vulnerability, was thrust into the spotlight as a reluctant but powerful voice advocating for social justice. His every step was now symbolic, a testament to the potential for individual action to catalyze sweeping changes within an entrenched system. The media, ever hungry for narratives of transformation, chronicled every unfolding moment, amplifying voices that had long been drowned out by corporate interests. Social media platforms buzzed with impassioned posts and calls for accountability, igniting debates that spanned the spectrum from grassroots activism to high-level policy reform. At community centers, discussions on equity and inclusion became the norm, drawing in local leaders and residents who sought to rewrite the narrative of their urban landscape. In these forums, the billionaire's previous missteps were dissected, with many urging him to become a champion for those who had been marginalized by decades of neglect. His public appearances, once marked by the arrogance of unchecked privilege, now resonated with a sincere desire to contribute meaningfully to societal healing. Yet, beneath the veneer of newfound commitment, The scars of past inaction and complicity remained, serving as a constant reminder of the long road ahead. For Jamal, the transition from a street urchin to a symbol of resistance was fraught with the challenges of balancing personal identity with the weight of public expectation. Still, his resilience shone through as he continued to navigate the complex labyrinth of urban life with an unwavering determination to stand up for justice. The city's heartbeat, now synchronized with the rhythm of protest and hope, pulsed in time with the collective dreams of its diverse inhabitants. In neighborhoods that had once been overlooked, the call for reform galvanized a sense of unity, bridging divides that had long separated communities by wealth and opportunity. Local artists and poets found in these turbulent times an endless reservoir of inspiration, capturing the raw emotions of a city in transition with every brushstroke in verse. Murals depicting Jamal's courageous stance began to appear on once derelict walls, transforming public spaces into canvases of resistance and hope. Politicians, initially cautious in their approach, were compelled to address the growing unrest with promises of reforms and initiatives aimed at uplifting the underprivileged. Debates in legislative halls took on an impassioned tone as representatives from diverse backgrounds sought to reconcile the contrasting worlds of wealth and destitution. The billionaire, now a reluctant symbol of both remorse and potential redemption, attended town hall meetings where his every word was weighed against the demands for genuine accountability. As community leaders challenged long-held assumptions, the discussion shifted from mere rhetoric to the formulation of actionable policies that could alter the course of history. A wave of optimism swept through the city's streets as local businesses and philanthropic organizations joined forces in a bid to create sustainable change. At the heart of this movement was the belief that every individual, regardless of social standing, had the right to dignity, respect, and opportunity. The once stark division between affluence and poverty began to blur as new alliances formed, driven by the collective pursuit of a more just society. Jamal, embodying the spirit of defiance and hope, continued to traverse the city's vibrant thoroughfares, his eyes reflecting both the scars of past hardships and the promise of future transformation. In the echo of his earlier outcry, a new dialogue was born, one that sought to redefine societal values and embrace the richness of diversity. The media's relentless coverage, now tempered by a focus on constructive change, shifted the narrative from sensationalism to genuine calls for systemic reform. Community leaders emphasized that true progress required more than symbolic gestures, advocating for deep structural changes in education, healthcare, and economic opportunity. The billionaire, confronting his own legacy of excess, pledged to establish scholarships and community programs that would empower the next generation. This pledge, though met with cautious optimism, underscored a broader shift in the city's ethos, a recognition that transformation begins with acknowledging past wrongs. Volunteers and activists organized a series of public events aimed at fostering dialogue, solidarity, and mutual understanding across social divides. Cultural festivals emerged as platforms for celebrating diversity and championing the arts as instruments of healing and community cohesion. In the midst of this vibrant renaissance, every corner of the city resonated with the shared hope of building a future where opportunity was not dictated by birthright or wealth. The painful lessons of the past were now interwoven with dreams of a more inclusive society, where each citizen's potential was nurtured and celebrated. As the movement gained momentum, quiet victories, small acts of kindness and solidarity began to accumulate, reinforcing the belief that change was not only possible but inevitable. The intricate tapestry of urban life, once marred by division and despair, was gradually being rewoven with threads of compassion, resilience, and collective purpose. In the final analysis, the city's journey toward justice was not defined by a single moment or individual, but by the enduring spirit of a community united in its quest for a fairer, more compassionate world. In the wake of the city's awakening to systemic injustices, the tension that had briefly suspended time now morphed into a deliberate, ongoing dialogue among its inhabitants. The day after the transformative events, the air itself seemed charged with the weight of unspoken promises and the determination to rewrite the narrative of inequality. Community leaders convened in a hastily arranged assembly in the heart of the city, where the voices of the oppressed and the affluent alike were urged to confront uncomfortable truths. At this critical juncture, Jamal's figure, still emblematic of raw defiance, became a living symbol of the potential for change that resided in every marginalized soul. The billionaire, with a heavy burden of self-reproach upon his shoulders, attended the meeting as a humble participant, his eyes reflecting both sorrow and newfound resolve. Amid the fervor of passionate speeches and tearful confessions, long-forgotten alliances began to form, bridging gaps that had once seemed insurmountable. With each spoken word, the assembly's energy escalated into a tangible force, promising that the past would not dictate the future of the city. Stories of personal loss and betrayal intertwined with declarations of hope, as survivors of systemic neglect recounted their struggles in voices that trembled with both pain and pride. In a stirring moment, an elderly community matriarch recounted the hardships of her youth, drawing parallels between past injustices and the contemporary crisis that now demanded attention. Her poignant narrative, delivered with unwavering dignity, resonated deeply with those gathered, igniting a fervor for reparation and acknowledgement. The discussion turned to tangible solutions as local innovators and activists proposed new models for education, healthcare, and economic equity. One proposal suggested the establishment of community-run enterprises, where profits would be reinvested to uplift the living conditions of the urban poor. Another idea centered on transformative urban planning, designed to break down the physical and psychological barriers that had long isolated impoverished neighborhoods. The billionaire, humbled by the collective grief and hope surrounding him, listened intently, his silence a testament to his inner transformation. As debates continued, the narrative shifted from personal blame to a broader examination of the systemic structures that had allowed such disparities to flourish. In the midst of this introspection, the spirit of communal resilience became palpable, wrapping around each participant like a warm, unifying blanket. The city, a microcosm of a larger global struggle, now stood on the precipice of an unprecedented social metamorphosis. The forum not only served as a platform for airing grievances, but also as a crucible for forging innovative solutions to age-old problems. Young activists, emboldened by the courage of Jamal's actions, stepped forward with proposals for mentorship programs and community gardens. Their visions were interwoven with the practical insights of seasoned community organizers, creating a blueprint for a more inclusive and sustainable future. The meeting, charged with emotion and pragmatic ambition, unfolded into a series of subcommittees dedicated to addressing specific facets of urban injustice. One such committee focused on education reform, determined to ensure that every child, regardless of their background, received quality learning opportunities. Another group, comprised of local business leaders and social workers, brainstormed ways to stimulate economic development in neglected districts. Throughout the session, the atmosphere was punctuated by moments of solemn reflection, as well as bursts of laughter that broke the tension with a reminder of the enduring human spirit. As the day waned, the assembly reached a tentative consensus on a multi-pronged strategy to combat the entrenched inequities that had long marred the city. The billionaire, now visibly moved by the collective resolve, pledged to allocate significant resources toward these community-driven initiatives. His commitment, though met with cautious optimism, signaled the beginning of a long-awaited dialogue between the realms of extreme wealth and abject poverty. Simultaneously, Jamal, who had once shouted a defiant warning in a moment of desperation, was now recognized as an indispensable catalyst for change. His journey from a solitary street crier to a voice for the voiceless had inspired countless others to speak out against injustice. Community members, inspired by the courage displayed at the assembly, began organizing grassroots campaigns that sought to hold local authorities accountable. In the days that followed, the fervor of the meeting permeated every facet of city life, from bustling marketplaces to quiet residential lanes. Artists and writers captured the day's events in vibrant murals and stirring poetry, ensuring that the moment was immortalized in the city's cultural memory. The impact of the assembly was felt far beyond the immediate participants, as news of the transformative dialogue spread through social media and local news outlets. This burgeoning movement of reformation was characterized by its inclusiveness, drawing support from a wide spectrum of the population. Skeptics were slowly silenced by the undeniable momentum that pulsed through every community initiative, every protest, and every heartfelt conversation. The energy of that day was emblematic of a larger global shift, a testament to the power of collective action in the face of overwhelming adversity. As the community began to implement the proposals discussed, tangible changes emerged that redefined the urban landscape and offer hope for future generations. The billionaire's commitment to redirecting his fortune toward meaningful causes became a powerful symbol of what could be achieved when privilege was harnessed for the common good. Even as challenges persisted and old wounds took time to heal, the community's united stance forged a path toward a more equitable society. In the twilight of that transformative day, the city stood as a beacon of possibility, its renewed spirit a promise that the fight for justice was not in vain. In the quiet after the fervent debates of recent days, the city embraced a reflective calm that belied the turbulent energies still coursing through its veins. Jamal, whose impassioned cry had sparked a movement, now walked the familiar streets with a measured determination, each step resonating with the hope of a renewed tomorrow. The billionaire, once a symbol of unyielding opulence, had transformed his private mansion into a command center for meaningful change, where plans to mend societal wounds were drafted with painstaking care. Behind closed doors, experts and community advocates gathered to design comprehensive programs aimed at dismantling the structures of inequality that had long divided the populace. Every meeting was steeped in earnest deliberation, as strategies were refined to ensure that the benefits of reform reached every neglected corner of the city. Local newspapers, now chronicling stories of resilience and redemption, reported extensively on the collaborative efforts that sought to restore dignity to the impoverished. Murals portraying Jamal's brave stance and the billionaire's humbled commitment adorned walls that once echoed only with the clamor of discord, transforming urban art into symbols of hope. In classrooms and community halls, discussions about justice and equitable opportunities became the norm, inspiring young minds to envision a future unburdened by the mistakes of the past. The transformation was gradual yet palpable, as citizens from all walks of life joined forces in initiatives that ranged from education reform to community health projects. Local businesses began sponsoring vocational training programs and apprenticeship opportunities, recognizing that economic empowerment was key to lasting societal change. The billionaire's public speeches, once characterized by detached grandeur, now carried the weight of genuine remorse and an earnest plea for unity and understanding. In televised interviews, he recounted his journey from self-indulgence to a newfound commitment to social responsibility, urging others in positions of power to follow suit. His transformation resonated with many who had long felt abandoned by a system that prized wealth over welfare, igniting debates on the true meaning of success. Across the city, grassroots movements flourished as community centers, once overlooked, became epicenters of vibrant dialogue and collective action. Activists organized neighborhood cleanups, cultural festivals, and educational workshops, each event a testament to the community's determination to reclaim its dignity. The streets, once a backdrop for despair, now thrummed with the sound of hopeful chatter, the clatter of renewed ambition, and the promise of reform. Jamal's image, immortalized in poignant street art, served as a daily reminder that even the smallest voice could catalyze monumental change. Community leaders, bolstered by the momentum of recent reforms, initiated public forums where every citizen's story was valued and every grievance heard. In these forums, the narrative shifted from blame to collective responsibility, emphasizing that healing the city required united efforts from all its inhabitants. Policy proposals emerged that targeted long-standing issues such as housing insecurity, inadequate healthcare, and unequal access to education. Each proposal was meticulously debated in town halls, where citizens voiced their support and skepticism, contributing to a process that was as democratic as it was transformative. The billionaire pledged substantial portions of his fortune to fund these initiatives, a gesture that, while met with cautious optimism, underscored his commitment to atonement. As funds were allocated to build new community centers and renovate crumbling schools, tangible evidence of progress began to the urban landscape. Public trust, once eroded by decades of neglect and excess, slowly started to rebuild through the consistent demonstration of empathy and accountability. Media outlets, shifting away from sensationalism, now provided in-depth coverage of the reform process, highlighting successes and transparently addressing setbacks. The city's leaders worked tirelessly to ensure that the reforms were not temporary fixes but foundational changes that would endure for future generations. Local mentors emerged from the community, guiding disadvantaged youth with stories of resilience and practical advice on navigating a complex social system. The transformation was marked not only by infrastructural improvements, but also by a palpable change in the collective spirit of the citizens, united in their quest for justice. Neighborhoods that had once been emblematic of neglect now buzzed with creative energy, as community gardens, libraries, and art spaces sprang up in unexpected places. Social media platforms became a chorus of support, amplifying grassroots successes and encouraging dialogue between citizens and policymakers. Jamal's journey from a solitary voice on the streets to a symbol of communal resistance continued to inspire acts of kindness and courageous initiatives across the city. The billionaire, attending community events and local celebrations, made a deliberate effort to bridge the gap between his former life of isolation and the vibrant reality of public service. In intimate gatherings and large rallies alike, his willingness to listen and learn fostered an atmosphere of mutual respect and collective determination. Educational seminars on civic engagement and social equity saw unprecedented attendance, The citizens embraced the opportunity to contribute to a shared vision of progress. The evolution of the city was not without challenges, as deep-rooted prejudices and bureaucratic hurdles occasionally threatened to stall the momentum of change. Yet every obstacle was met with innovative solutions and a resilient spirit that refused to be dampened by the weight of history or inertia of tradition. The interplay of individual narratives and communal aspirations created a tapestry of reform that was as diverse as it was unified, weaving together stories of struggle and triumph. As each day unfolded, the commitment to social justice and reform was renewed with every small victory and every act of collective courage. The convergence of transformed hearts and reinvigorated institutions heralded a new chapter in the city's story, one defined by empathy, equity, and an unwavering pursuit of a better future. In the soft glow of dusk, as the urban landscape shimmered with the promise of tomorrow, the legacy of that fateful day endured, a living testament to the power of unity and the relentless drive for lasting transformation. In the final chapter of this transformative journey, the city embraced a newfound optimism as tangible progress began to rewrite the legacy of inequality. The homeless boy, Jamal, now emerged not only as a symbol of defiance, but also as a living testament to the power of a single, unyielding voice. His once solitary cry, "Don't eat that," had evolved into a clarion call that resonated deeply across communities and ignited widespread reform. The billionaire, whose stunned moment of inaction had sparked a chain reaction of self-reflection, now led initiatives aimed at mending the fractured social fabric. In boardrooms and community centers alike, his transformed commitment served as a bridge connecting the privileged with those long overlooked. Grassroots movements that had blossomed in the wake of his reckoning now thrived as vibrant hubs of activism and collaboration. Neighborhoods once marked by despair now pulsed with creative energy, as residents united to reclaim spaces and rebuild community pride. Public forums became regular gatherings where citizens openly discussed strategies to overcome systemic barriers and pursue equitable opportunities. Local leaders, inspired by the courage of a boy who had spoken truth to power, found new purpose in transforming long-entrenched institutions. Educational programs, healthcare initiatives, and economic empowerment projects multiplied, offering hope to generations that had suffered in silence. The media, having once amplified divisions, now highlighted success stories of unity and the tangible impacts of compassionate governance. City officials, buoyed by public demand for accountability, enacted policies designed to redress the balance between wealth and need. Jamal's story, chronicled in murals, documentaries, and heartfelt testimonials, became a timeless reminder of the strength in vulnerability. His every word and action was celebrated as a beacon of resistance against a society that had long prioritized excess over empathy. In the heart of the metropolis, long-forgotten communities found their voices, rallying around initiatives that promised true systemic change. The billionaire's philanthropic endeavors shifted focus from superficial charity to sustained investments in social infrastructure. Through his efforts, neglected neighborhoods received improved housing, better educational facilities, and more accessible healthcare. The transformative ripple effect extended beyond city limits, inspiring similar movements in urban centers facing parallel struggles. Collaborative projects between public and private sectors began to materialize, creating opportunities for shared prosperity and accountability. As these alliances deepened, economic disparities gradually narrowed, setting the stage for a more inclusive future. Former adversaries found common ground in a renewed commitment to communal welfare and the eradication of systemic injustice. Policy reforms, once considered radical, gained traction as evidence of positive change spread throughout the community. Cultural events and artistic exhibitions celebrated the city's resilience and the diverse tapestry of its inhabitants. In every corner of the urban landscape, signs of recovery and progress were visible, from revitalized parks to newly constructed community centers. The spirit of cooperation replaced the old paradigms of isolation and neglect, fostering a climate of mutual respect and shared destiny. Jamal, whose personal hardships had once defined his existence, now stood as a mentor to youth eager to shape a better tomorrow. His journey from the margins to a celebrated figure underscored the transformative potential inherent in every individual. The billionaire, whose transformation had been both personal and public, continued to challenge the status quo through his philanthropic leadership. Public trust, rebuilt through consistent actions and transparent intentions, laid the foundation for lasting societal healing. The once stark divisions between the affluent and the disenfranchised gradually blurred under the influence of united community efforts. Local businesses joined a movement by offering training, employment, and mentorship programs that empowered residents to thrive. Intergenerational dialogues flourished as elders shared wisdom and the youth injected new energy into age-old struggles. Artistic expressions, fueled by the collective desire for justice, transformed public spaces into galleries of hope and renewal. Every policy, every grassroots initiative was a step toward dismantling the remnants of a system that had once silenced the voiceless. The city's metamorphosis was not merely infrastructural but also profoundly emotional, as citizens reclaimed pride in their shared identity. In this atmosphere of rebirth, even skeptics acknowledged that the path to equity was being paved by genuine human connection. Daily life, once marred by disparity and neglect, gradually turned into a celebration of collective achievements and small victories. The movement's momentum, nurtured by both individual courage and community solidarity, promised to sustain progress for years to come. As the sun set over a city transformed by hope and hard-won justice, every resident recognized the profound impact of their united efforts. In that luminous twilight, the legacy of a brave boy's shout and a billionaire's awakening endured as an everlasting symbol of redemption and change.